Economists are painting a bleak picture for South Africa. The country faces a fiscal crisis, a weakening rand, all of which are consequences of poor governance. South Africans are now being squeezed from all sides, with fuel, food and power price hikes to go along with high interest rates. Hayley Parry is a money coach and has tips for you on how to make ends meet, especially as we head into what's supposed to be a festive season. Hayley, thank you so much for speaking to us on SA tonight. The festive season, for some people at the end of what's been an incredibly long, not just a long year, what seems like a long 3 years. And the festive season and some kind of a holiday and a break from the normal is really giving people hope throughout this last bit of the year. And where we're seeing everything else skyrocket, we're not seeing salaries increase. Companies might not be able to afford bonuses. So for those families who might be, tempted to take out a microloan or increase a credit card limit to pay for December expenses or, what would usually be luxuries, what's your advice?
Yeah, look, it's not fun right now when we're talking about bank balances, that is for sure. And yes, my advice would be try and not use other people's money, i.e. the banks or the microlenders, as you say, to fund your lifestyle. Because unfortunately what happens is you then start 2024 on the back foot, playing catch up, trying to repay these debts that, we're currently sitting in an interest rate environment where there's a good chance interest rates may continue to rise. We've had a brief pause, but we're not sure which way they're going to go. And the reality is that it's expensive at the moment to service any kind of debt. And if there's a chance that it's going to continue to get worse, we'd rather recommend that you do whatever you can to use your money rather than other people's money to get through the silly season. The reality is we've got 2 paydays, right? We've got October and November. So make it count. Put away as much money as you can to fund your festivities if you're going to have any this festive season. Rather use
start saving now. What's your advice for people every year? When should they start putting away for December?
I think for a lot of people, the reality is life is tough at the moment. To find the money to put aside is hard. And I think we just need to acknowledge that. What we like to teach, because we, financial education is the thing that, we're really passionate about, is that money that you want to keep to spend in future, take it out of your bank account first. So the same day that your salary goes in, you take a little bit aside and you either save or invest that money. Okay. That is the profit that you're making from your salary, as it were. And then you make do with the salary, with the amount of money you've got left in your bank account to cover the expenses for the rest of the month. There is this idea that we're really comfortable about when we're thinking about the companies that we work for or the companies we buy products and services from. We know that they need to make a profit because otherwise they're going to go out of business, right? But we don't often apply that thinking to our own personal finances. And so when you say, I worked really hard to earn that salary that came into my bank account this month, how am I going to ensure that I am personally profitable? Yeah, and that's how we do it. You make sure that you take that money out first and you make a plan with the expenses for the rest of the month. So even if it is a small amount, what you're doing is you're starting to flex some financial muscle. You're starting to put in place good money management habits. And so literally, even if you're starting with $50 this next payday, it's probably more than you've done for the past couple of months, and it's a good start. And one of the key tips that we always recommend to help you do that is to do some form of automation. So do the work once and reap the benefits month after month. So set up a scheduled transfer or an automated transfer, depending on how it works with your bank account, a debit order perhaps, to literally pay yourself first and make sure that you're putting aside some money for your savings, like you say, that you may want to be spending in December or for other short to medium term financial goals.
Of course, December, which is a relatively expensive month, even if you are trying to be frugal, especially if you have children, you can't take Christmas and what is supposed to be a celebration, and it is what is often the only time in a year when children get new clothes or get to travel to see other family members in remote parts of the country. So there are expenses that are pretty much unavoidable. But that month is followed by one of the longest months in the year, which is January, and most people are broke by mid-month. And it's also a time of year when there are huge expenses. If you've got children, school uniforms, school stationery, school fees have to be paid in the beginning of the year before kids start. You know, a lot of people who use up their savings in December find themselves with no backup for January, February and March when things do go wrong. You know, if you have an unplanned for, unforeseen expense, you know, let's say you have to replace the tires on your vehicle, or you know, a household emergency, you need to replace you know, equipment or household appliances, then you've got no backup. What would you say to people about long-term thinking at a time when all the marketing is driven to immediate spending?
So there's two things that I would like to raise. The first is pre-funding is really important. So like you say, you know those expenses are coming, right? It's not a surprise that kids, I don't know, they grow even more over the December holidays than any other time, right? So the chances are they're going to need new school uniforms in January. So pre-funding is important. Putting aside money in an emergency fund is another thing that's critically important, so that you create a bit of a buffer between yourself and your bank account and whatever life is going to throw at you. The other thing to keep in mind is that the moment we align our money management habits with our values, as a family, you know, in the example that you're giving around kids at Christmas, you will find it's much easier to make some of the harder decisions when it comes to our money, and to have some of the harder chats. So for an example, you know, you were talking about the gifting of things to kids. One of the things that can really help facilitate this period of financial stress is to have discussions and to talk to your kids. You can talk about the fact that we don't only have to give things, we can give to one another of our time, of our energy, of our love, of our service. And you can create experiences around, like you said, family gatherings that don't need to cost a huge amount of money. And you celebrate the experience, you celebrate the time together as a family. And you're open with the kids while you're making these decisions as a family, so that you can say, this is how we're going to do things a little differently this festive season, so that not only do we have fun times, but we're doing it in a way so that mom and dad are making sure that we've got money for your school uniforms, for your stationery, and even, you know, for the sports tour or the school camp that's coming in March, because this is how we're going to do things differently. We want 2024 to be a less financially stressful year, and so that means we're going to need to make some changes as a family. And that's how you start engaging them and teaching them this really critical life skill around money management, and making it part of your everyday discussion around the dinner table at home.
So these financial tips really apply to people who have the flexibility of a little bit extra every month, that they can play with, that they can invest, that they can save. And unfortunately, the reality is that so many millions of South Africans are either reliant on grants or are living hand to mouth, where they don't know, are they going to get through the next week financially, let alone get from now, which is the first week in October, to the end of December financially. For those families, where is the starting block? Because it all seems so incredibly overwhelming, and it doesn't look like there's any glimmer of hope on the horizon that things are going to stabilize financially.
Yeah, the reality is that managing money is always going to be that much harder when there's less of it. That's a reality that we can't get away from, and unfortunately, it's a particularly hard reality of living in South Africa. That said, we do know that whenever people are dealing with money in any way, shape, or form, whether it's a salary or a grant, what always helps when you've got access to money, no matter how much it is understanding A, how money works, and B, how you can work with it better. there are certain rules around money. There's certain basics that unfortunately very few of us are ever taught at home or at school. So my advice would be to anybody embarking on, this journey around managing their money and wanting to do it in a way that works better for them, is to get yourself a financial education, because it is a skill that can be learned just like any other. And unfortunately, it comes with often a lot of jargon and also a lot of emotion. Often money was, particularly if there's not a lot of it in a home, it can be used as a weapon and a tool. There's fear and there's shame. And so there's this mystery that surrounds money that we need to remove. Because once we get ourselves a financial education, we educate our family, we educate our kids, what we do then is the money we do have, we learn to manage it better. And the moment we do
sorry,
that,
I do have to interrupt you. Unfortunately, I've let myself run away with time. It's been so fabulous chatting to you. These are such crucial issues that all South Africans can, as you say, learn, get a financial education, better their situation through dedicated application of whatever little that they do have. Thank you so much for your insights. Luckily, it is still 2 and a little bit more months until the end of the year, so there is some time to put some money away to have a better festive season than it might look like at the moment.